Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Our current session focuses on micro strategies for integrating language skills. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would have some understanding and knowledge of how various micro strategies can be used for integrating language skills in a language teaching classroom. Well, my dear students, these micro strategies as well as explanatory projects show how channels of communication such as newspapers, radio, TV and the internet can be effectively used for the purposes of integrating all the language skills in a language classroom, especially in an L2 classroom. In fact, micro strategies are a matter of money and motherhood. Let's talk about this. A regular column feature that appears in a newspaper or news magazines in many parts of the world is the advice column. You know, in newspapers you would see how various columns are based on the letters that people write to the editors, and the editors, for example, would give advice, or then some experts would offer their advice on various issues of life. So on an issue of money and motherhood, this column is taken from such a newspaper background, and it is used here to show you how various micro strategies can be used for the purposes of integrating skills. Now, nature of these columns is of some kind of personal experiences in a particular kind of social background in which the writer seeks an advice. These columns can be a good source for a meaningful generation of activities in the classroom and for the integration of the skills in the context of personal and social experiences. It is very easy to use these newspaper columns as well, because to design a classroom activity, they can be a source to involve or the full skills. They can be used at different levels of the linguistic competence of the students and for creating certain communicative challenges as well. I'm going to take you to a full slideshow where I would show you how there is one way of using this, and as I've already mentioned that on the issues of money and motherhood, I have selected some material that I would show you how integration of skills can take place. So my dear students, this text is taken from an advice column, and I have already explained what are these advice columns. That is titled as Miss Manners. This appeared in San Jose Mercury News. The letter that is written in this column goes like this. Dear Miss Manners, while we were expecting our fourth son, my mother offered to come and assist with our family during his birth, using a plane ticket she already had. So we were glad to have her here to help with transportation, meal preparation, etc. Because of unforeseen circumstances, she ended up staying for 13 days. During her stay, she made many trips to the grocery store. Some I requested, some she did on her own. Whenever she purchased something for our family, I told her I would pay her back. Upon departure, she presented me with a total of $400. I wrote her a check. Later, I looked at the receipts she had left. So, you know, this is the whole complaint or the letter that is written. I'll continue with this. She charged us for all the food she ate, numerous magazines and cookbooks she purchased for herself, special soap she wanted instead of the brand we use, and gifts for the dog, that is $10 for the dog bones, and the children. In addition, she bought many expensive items, large bags of macadamia nuts and almonds, brand name grocery items, when I usually purchase store brands, that I would never have purchased. She is not poor and neither are we, but my husband and I are at a loss as to why she would take advantage of us in this way. She did not even leave the used magazines for us to see. Should I confront her or just let sleeping dogs eat their $10 bones? Now, this was the whole column that was used. I hope you would have found it very interesting. Well, you might not be able to relate to it in some ways, because in our culture we have these cultural bonds where mothers would come in such situations and would stay with their daughters. But in the context where it is written, it sounds to be a genuine complaint and a point of worry by this woman who has written that. Now let us see how we can use this for various integrating language skills activities in the classroom. So a teacher can do certain activities, for example, make photocopies of the selected text. This is the first possibility. or copy them on the overhead projector the way you want to show this to them. In the class, before you distribute it to the learners, read the text aloud in normal speed. Now what would happen? This reading of the text would be kind of, one skill of listening of the learners would be improved. Ask the learners to guess what they would expect the writer to say about her mother. Now when you would ask the learners, what would happen? Of course they would respond to that. So speaking and listening would be involved. Read the next 3 sentences. Now what is happening if it is shown on the overhead projector, then reading for themselves would be involved. If you are reading it out for them, then in this case what would happen? Listening would be involved. Pause, ask, then read the first sentence of the second paragraph, and so on. So basically what the teacher can do is can break the whole letter into different parts and can use them one after the other. At an appropriate point in the reading, that is at the end of the first paragraph, ask them what the writer is seeking advice about. Of course, this would help the students to think critically, and then they may be asked to discuss amongst themselves, and through that process, when they would answer, speaking and listening, not only these 2 language skills would be integrated, but also through discussion, their critical thinking abilities would be improved. Now distribute the copies of the text or project or project it on the overhead projector the way you want to do it. Ask your learners to read it carefully. Now the focus shifts to the reading skill. Encourage them to seek clarification to help them understand the text. So the teacher should be around, should be available. If there is any problem in understanding, the teacher would explain. Form small groups and have some discussion the immediate issues raised in the text, zeroing in on the mother's action and the daughter's reaction. Focusing on the actions of the mother and the daughter, there can be certain issues that can be picked up from the text, and the students can be asked to discuss them in groups. Each group has to prepare a consensus report. Now this is the stage where writing would take place. Depending on the proficiency level, you can encourage them to discuss the cultural issues, the larger socio-cultural background issues, etc. Have a representative from each group to present what the consensus report of the group is. Again, this would involve listening and speaking activity. After giving adequate time for presentation, ask a couple of active, enterprising students to role play that as well, which would again have a kind of possibility of integrating all the skills. Ask them to pretend that they are the experts the writer is asking for the advice from. So now ask them to write in the class individually appropriate responses as a piece of advice to this writer. So, of course, the learners would be from different cultural and social backgrounds in the class. So in their own culture's light, they would give the pieces of advice. Well, my dear students, you should think about the possibilities of using local materials from the local newspapers and such columns in the local newspapers in your own social context for integrating various language skills.